Have you ever had negative thoughts in your mind that you aren't good enough, that you'll never be successful? If so, you're not alone. I've had those thoughts playing in my mind ever since I took the leap to become an entrepreneur. It's a dirty, dark secret that no one likes to talk about, as the glamorization of becoming an entrepreneur is shown in the media. I realized that in order to succeed, I needed help. We all do. So I decided to go all in on myself, spending thousands of hours in the trenches, reading, joining groups, listening to podcasts, hiring coaches to develop a bulletproof morning routine for success. Join me on my journey as together we build our morning fire to ignite our lives as entrepreneurs. My name is Jeff Wickersham, and this is the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast. Welcome to the show. I am extremely excited to have Shawn Khorrami on the show today. Shawn, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. I love getting into state, so we have an amazing conversation. So we're going to do 3 power breaths in, and I define that as breathing in through the belly, up through the chest. We're going to raise our hands up. So let's go ahead and breathe in and out. Good. Another breath in and out. Final breath in and out. All right, now we're going to do a power boom. So, boom at the top of our lungs. I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. We can pound our chest, get the energy level raised up in 3, 2, 1, and boom.
Boom.
Nice. Love it. Love it. So let's get right into it. I know we're going to dive into morning habits, rituals, routines. I love asking my guests what their go-to morning habit, ritual, routine is. So, and I know you've got a juicy one because you get up probably even earlier than I do. So would love to hear from that, Shawn.
I get up sometime around when you do on the East Coast, but I'm on the West Coast. So every morning I'm up at about 2 to 4 in the morning. That's just the way it happens. It's almost my natural clock because I do not use alarm clocks, not even when I have early morning flights. If I'm going to miss a flight, I'm going to miss a flight. I'll tell you this, I've never missed a flight. But what I do is I get up at 2 to 4 in the morning. I kind of look at my phone, my computer, whichever one's closest, and see if there's any emergencies, anything that needs very urgent ones. Then send out assignments that time. So anyone who's worked with me knows that generally things that come out from me in terms of things that need to be done come out at weird times in the morning. And then after that, I'm off to the gym, where I I think about not just short term, what I have to do that day. I think about how I'm meeting my weekly goals, how I'm working on my quarterly goals, even annual goals, where I am in where I want to be. What I don't do is I don't speak a word, not even to myself. Is total silence, and depending on what I think I've told you, I work out between 1.5 and 3 hours in the morning, and the reason it's 1.5 to 3 hours is dependent on that 2 to 4 where I wake up, because by 6 o'clock is when I really get going. I'm fueled up, I'm ready to jet out, and that's when I do it. So that's a habit that developed over the years, as I had business only in the U.S. It worked very well because by the time I'm getting going, the East Coast is also getting going, and I'm there with them. And now I have team members and business out in Europe, which is kind of weird because 2 o'clock would be a decent time to correspond with them and to actually get on phone calls and meetings. But I don't get on phone calls and meetings. I do go back and forth a little bit on messaging and stuff like that. So that's sort of how I get myself ready every single morning.
Gotcha. Okay. So I want to dive in a little bit, and I get asked this question a lot. 2 to 4 in the morning, you're getting up. What time do you go to sleep?
I don't like sleeping. I'm weird that way. So I basically have to be at a point where I'm falling asleep doing whatever I'm doing. And so I'll tell you what happened last night. Last night I fell asleep at 10:30. The night before it might have been about 9:30. It's not too late, but whenever I fall asleep, that's when I wake up. So 7 days a week. That's the way I am.
Okay. Love it. And around the flight process. So even if you have an early morning flight, so are you telling yourself I've got a 6 a.m. flight, I need to get up at 5, or are you just kind of letting it be? Obviously, I feel like there's some power in future setting. All right, when I'm going to get up, knowing what time your body just wakes up. Do you go through that process at all?
So what happens is, and my wife, as we got to know each other, she got to sort of see this. She'll say to me, "Oh, I have to be up at X time. I'll be up, no problem." And I think as I started actually thinking about it, I think what I'm doing is exactly what you're saying. Is that at night I'm saying, "Hey, you got to be up at this time," and a lot of times I wake up a little bit before that, for whatever reason, and I sort of adjust myself. So that's why I'm so confident. I'm going to be up if something needs to be done. And the weird thing, by the way, that 2 to 4 period of time has become sacred, and over time it became very sacred to me. It wasn't some ritual I started in order to focus myself. It became that. Even now, when my wife, if by chance she's awake at during those times, something happens and she's awake, I'm sitting there going, "What are you doing? Why are you here?" Because suddenly that's become my space for myself, and if anything disturbs that, now it's become a problem for me, right? So it has, by virtue of just over time, and as time has gone on, it has become this ritual for me and a place where I focus. And then I notice how everybody else focuses, and I sit there and go, "Did I do this on purpose?" No, it sort of happened. It became that for me.
Interesting. And I love how it kind of organically grew. And I would say, to the point you mentioned, yes, I do. When you say, "Hey, I need to be up at this time," you wake up a little bit earlier. That has happened to me as well. And it speaks volume to putting thoughts in your mind before you go to sleep, and kind of wiring not only what time you're going to get up, but I would also say you're wiring yourself for success the next day, right? What do you want to accomplish? Saying those type of things, the mind's going to stew over it as you're sleeping. And I will agree with you that time alone in the morning is sacred time. The summertime, my boys, I've got 2 sons. My wife's a teacher, so they're both home, but everybody sleeps till 9 o'clock. Up at 4 a.m. I get 5 hours of productivity, of stuff done, and it's incredibly focused,
Yeah,
intentional work, and it's such a sacred time for sure.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So let's so 16 years old, you started your entrepreneurial journey. You've been a serial entrepreneur. Would love to hear just a little backstory, and then we'll get into a couple of the topics that we're going to discuss.
Yeah, my father always owned his own business. I'm an immigrant. He's an immigrant, obviously, and back in Iran, where we're from, he had his own company. When we moved over here, sort of by default, he ended up having to have his own company. It wasn't where he could go and find a job, particularly the way the political times were and things were. It was a little bit difficult. And what I noticed with my father was that he started, he had some funds. He was able to get some income property, some small income property, and he had a very difficult time managing it. So back when I was 16 years old, I sat there and I said, "Geez, what can I do to help my father?" And I noticed his friends were in the similar boat. These are very small entities, where you can't hire out for a lot of these services.
Right.
And so that was right about the time when personal computers are coming into your house, and I was incredibly interested in them. And so I put together a little database program, and little frills in there, very simple for today's stuff. I mean, nothing fancy, but it really helped them manage their business, and that was my business. It ended up being my business just by default, and
Well,
so that's how I began.
love it. You saw a need, and you fulfilled that need, and it came from a place of helping, obviously, your dad. So that's
Yep.
pretty powerful. What else then in your journey? I know you've had a lot of experiences, over a dozen companies.
Yes.
What's a couple lessons that you have learned? I always love to talk
So,
about lessons and failures as lessons to be learned moving forward. So what are a couple things that just stand out in your mind that you've learned?
Yeah, I noticed, as one thing as I went on, that became a theme for me.
Okay.
Is even when I was, I was going through college. I got 3 degrees in college. I went, and I have a law degree, and I kept on going with my formal education. But as I was always starting my own business, and so even when I did that, what I noticed was I would look over my industry and I would actually find ways to what I call back office my competitors.
Okay.
So there were things that there were services they needed, there were things they needed that I knew because I was in the same industry, I was in the same business. And so I would go and find and form little businesses that actually would back office them and help them out in their businesses. But I became part of their business. And that was something that I did over time. But one thing that I've also heard you mention quite a bit, I mean, obviously as part of your intro, but you've talked about it in depth, is how failure really brings about a lot of lessons. And that's the funny thing is, I've had huge successes. I've grown some of the companies, all the companies that I started from 0 employees all the way up. And some of them, yeah, I've grown. I've had situations where I've gotten to 8 and 9 figures in revenues. I've also had catastrophic failures, things that a lot of people hopefully will never experience in their lives. But from those things, and maybe because of those things, when people came to me and said, "Hey, I've seen you fail this way. How did you fix it? How did you get through this?" I'm in that same boat, and so I learned a lot through those processes. One of the things, by the way, is this situation that happened with COVID. Right, you have this gigantic, unprecedented disruption into our economic system. You're taking cover. Oh my God, you saw a lot of businesses that said, "Okay, I'm done. It's over." See, and in my mind, when you've been in those situations, what you do is you regroup and you figure out how to make yourself get out of it. And the funny thing is, we sat down, and when that situation happened, we sat down and we tried to figure out different ways that we could help people and get people through this situation. And through that, we ended up writing a whole book about how to deal with COVID. But what came out of it was that by the time we were finished, I said, you know what, this can apply to anything, any situation where you have a disruption. So we have this ebook, and I'm right now. I was telling you, I'm writing the second version of it, which is anything proof for your business, which I'm happy to offer to your audience at the end. I'll give a link that they can go to, and they can download it for free, and hopefully it'll bring them a lot of value. But that's one of the things that you learn, is that you have to pick up and you have to move along and survive.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and one of the common recurring themes I've heard now twice, kind of, is one with helping your dad and father and some of the other players that were owning properties, serving a need, that back officing your competitors. Since you're in that business, you understand them much deeper, and then you can satisfy a need there. Love the failures of how you learn, and I think they're just such a tremendous opportunity for growth, where if you see them in a different light, then you can use them as growth, rather than a failure just being so crippling and crawling into a hole. And I know you brought up COVID. I owned a gym locally, and when COVID hit, I mean, when it was announced in Pennsylvania we were shutting down, that night I had a message out to my clients. They got weights, they got equipment. We were going virtual the day after. And if you have that mindset of, hey, regardless of what is going to happen, and we know plenty of stuff happens, if you can pivot, that's incredibly powerful.
There's always an opportunity, Jeff. That's the way you have to look at it. Everything, yeah, it can be a disaster. You could be looking down doom, but you have to look for that opportunity that's there. That's exactly what you just said. I looked for the opportunity, and I'm going to go virtual. I know how to handle that. I'm going to bring this value to people, And one, it's gonna bring that, it's gonna make them better. It's gonna probably get them through their days, by the way, because they're in whatever they're doing, they're worried and they're concerned. And so you're adding something to their day to make it normal. And at the same time, you are able to thrive with your own business.
Yep. So true. So let's get into that, because I do want to get in. The products is not the business, but the business is the product. Explain that one to the audience a little bit, and let's
Sure.
dive into it.
Sure. Yeah. This is something, as we're all small businesses, and I help small businesses. And this is something that I see that over the years I saw that it was something people missed. They
Okay.
look at their product and they say, hey, look, that's my business. And I can show you that in the case of professionals, like a doctor. If you talk to a doctor, he believes that healing patients, that's his business. Whatever he does as a doctor is his business. That's not his business. That's his product. It's not his business. However, his business, his entire business, is what he's presenting as a product, right? You're not going to go to your doctor if you don't think he does good work. If you may not like his bedside manner, you may not like his staff, the way his office is, where it's located, all of those things, how they deal with you as a whole, is what your product is that you're offering. And getting people to sort of understand that hey, look, just because you have a great product doesn't mean you have a great company, doesn't mean you have a great business or you're going to have one. It's a start. Then that's what I want people to understand. This happens with restaurants a lot of times, and I've seen this people do this. They say, "Oh yeah, I know food, or I can make food really well." Well, you're not going to have a successful restaurant. There's a lot more to it, and yes, it starts with having great food, but that's not where it ends. So that is something that over and over, when I look at different businesses, I see that they're missing. And putting those pieces together, once you put them together, you have a very wonderful business that comes out of it. And this happens, I've seen this happen with people who have established brands where they have very good customer loyalty and they're trying to change or add to it, and they completely miss the boat on it. Or in a situation where they have a great product, and I say, well, I have a great product, but I have a store, and I used to say on Mars, but Mars is not so far-fetched anymore. So if you put a store on Saturn, no one's going to buy your product at the end of the day. So you have to sort of look at all of those things, take a holistic view of your business, and then act.
Yeah, and one of the things that popped into my mind as you were going through those stories and examples was the experience, right? The experience overall, like in a doctor's office, where it's who you're interacting with, what the overall experience is. And my local dentist here, I don't like going to the dentist. I don't know too many people that like going to the dentist, but there they give you a warm neck towel when you sit down. There's a chair massage when you leave. And I've told so many people about that business because of how the experience is, right? So I felt like that was kind of true to what you were speaking about there. That's great stuff. So another piece I want to talk to about is, everything in life is a negotiation, and how to walk away with a win every time. I think that's so important just to have as a base foundation. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you mean there.
Yeah, a lot of times you talk to people and they say, oh yeah, well, I'll bring you in to negotiate X, Y, and Z. And you sit there and say, wait a minute, everything you do, as you're dealing with another party, friend or foe, is a negotiation by definition. Whether you're deciding, what kind of product are we going to make? You are, even in very friendly conversations, back and forth, that process is a negotiation. And so, especially in business, as you're doing things, whether you're talking to your employees, you're talking to your lender, you're talking to your investor, you're talking to your customer, all of those things you need to be mindful of. And what I notice is people, the one tool that they don't seem to have or don't develop inside of their toolbox is that negotiation skill. And it is because they kind of compartmentalize and say, I'm not negotiating now, I'm not negotiating now, I'm only negotiating in this little sliver, which in their minds is where negotiation is. And so what they do is they leave a lot on the table. It happens in the situation where you're talking to someone, and what you have to do at all times is to be thinking, how am I going to give this person something that's of value to them? Because the only way they will walk towards where you want is if they believe they're getting something. And if there's a concept, people say, oh, I beat them down to this and that. Well, you're not thinking long term. If you're beating someone up, or if you feel like you're getting that kind of advantage, you are dealing with you're being very transactional about your business. So what you need to do is always look at what that person may want and start walking them towards what they want in order to get what you want. As long as you're constantly doing that, wherever you are inside of your business, I guarantee you will come out a winner every single time. And that's what I want people to sort of understand, is that's what I do with clients when I speak with them.
Yeah, and I think one of the most powerful things you said there is giving them something of value to meet you in the middle, and for it to be mutually beneficial, right? Because otherwise, if I beat somebody down, to your point, it's a one-time thing, and that might be it in the process, and you're very transactional versus strategic and building long-term relationships.
Yeah. And you have to not look at negotiation. Sometimes it is a zero-sum game, but it's very rare that it's a zero-sum game. And a lot of times the things that the other person wants do not have nearly as much value to you as they do to them. I mean, look at, there's maybe 10 things they would be happy with, and out of those, 8 of them may not have much value to you, but they may have a lot of value to them. And so there's a place, there's this really nice middle ground that you can meet, where you can get a lot of what you want, or feel like a winner through that process, and at the same time have a person who's very happy in dealing with you. And that's the way to actually build business relationships.
Love it. I love that concept. So Shawn, I know you mentioned people getting access to your book that you're putting together. Where can people find you as well?
So we launched our latest startup. It's called eplaybooks.com. I can be reached over there. I have a personal site, Khorrami Consulting, and what I did was, since Khorrami is difficult to spell for most, and understandably so, you can actually go to connectwithshawn.com. Shawn, SHAWN. So connectwithshawn.com. And I'm happy to offer your audience a free copy of our ebook, and also put them in touch with us when the next one comes.
Awesome. Shawn, I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, Jeff. Happy to be here.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing rest of your day. Rise, fight, love, repeat. Get after it, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast. You now have the knowledge, but without action, knowledge is useless. Choose to act. Choose to step into your greatness and unlock that hero inside of you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review so more entrepreneurs can hear this message. If you absolutely love this podcast, which I hope you do, then share it up with someone you know who might see benefit from it. Become that beacon of change, and together we can impact the world.